Good morning, everybody. Welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment. Hey, pay attention real quick before we get started here. I'm going to do things a little bit differently today. Today is a Q&A, and I've got a few questions that are really pretty significant. I think there's really good questions that are the kind of things that other people are going to want to watch afterwards, and I want to make it easy for them to find them. So instead of doing just one normal long Q&A session, I'm going to break this into two parts. So this is important both for those of you watching live and for watching recorded. I'm going to first do the more general questions, and we'll just lump all those together. And then I'm going to end the show. Now for you watching recorded, the show will end, and at the end of it, you're going to see 4 squares pop up with the 4 additional questions that came in. Those additional questions will be separate videos because, number one, you might not have any interest in it, of course, but number two, more importantly, for those who are interested, I want to make sure they can find it more easily. For those of you watching live, we'll have a false ending. So in the middle of the show, we're going to roll up the 4-square ending graphic and then come back to me and I will finish the next 4 questions. So for you watching live, when you see an ending in the middle, sit tight, we'll continue on. For those watching recorded, when you get to the end, you'll have 4 different ones to click on. Hope that makes sense to everybody. And with all that said, good morning, everybody. Welcome to a Monday, or it's Monday in most places. I know it's Tuesday already in some parts of the world. Let's just see what's going on in the chat room this morning. There's been a lot of chitter-chatter already, people starting early as always. And let's see, Faked Cube is starting it off with the first tag. Remember, as always, if you want to get my attention during the live chat, at PhotoJoseph, we'll put it nice and red on my screen, and that little $ button for the super chat will definitely get my attention as well. So Faked Cube says, would love it if you could say a few words about filters, specifically circular polarizers. If you ever use any or are knowledgeable on the subject, I'm planning a series of whale watching trips, oh fun, and want to cut down on water reflections. And I figure a filter would also protect the lens and front element from salt spray. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I wonder if we use the polarizer for that. But yeah, you're right, it will. Since I'll be putting on some high-end lenses, don't want to skimp with the cheap filters. Well, okay, so let me just start with that cheap. Well, you know, we'll do that. Let me wait to start the show, and I'll hit that because that's a good question that I think a lot of people might want to benefit from. Let's see, anything else going on in here? Martin's saying Ryan's getting all technical. I don't even know what Ryan's doing. Out of sight, out of mind. And Tom says, an early morning from Australia. Good morning, Australia. Just curious what the shoot without lens feature is supposed to be. That was your question, wasn't it? And that is on the list today, so we're going to do that. Oh no, you have that, but you don't have it in the chat thing. Okay. All right. I wanted to do a whole section on that, right? I don't think you did, because you were going to drop that in as a comment. But you came in here to drop it in live, which is cool. But what I meant was the comment. Let me make sure. Do I actually have this in here from you as a separate question? I do not. Okay. And I wanted to do that as a whole separate video. All right. Give me a second here. I'm going to create a whole new slide. That'll make 5 videos. Well, I guess. All right. You know what? We're just going to do it this way. Give me a second here. I can't. Let me see if I can. This is what, for those of you not watching live, if you're getting bored of this part, there's a link down below to jump to the beginning of the show. I forgot to mention that. Let me grab a screenshot of your question so I can add it in here, and I will cover that in the first section. Where am I looking for? There we go. Let's go to this. Get out of full screen. You're confusing me. Because that was a really good question. Tom, right? Where'd it go? Yeah, Tom. That's a really good question, Tom, and I definitely wanted to cover that in the show. I was waiting for you to add it as an actual comment on a show so I could tag it, on a previous episode so I could tag it, but that is okay. Don't you worry about it. I will grab it from here. And what I'm doing right now is, you'll see in a moment when I start the show, I've got screenshots of the questions to put up as kind of title slides, just trying to make this a little bit more organized and so on. Royal's asking, why are you no longer streaming in 4K? Because the 4K was just a test that was playing with the Epiphan Pearl 2, which I no longer have. That was just on loan to me. Where'd that there it is. That was just on loan to me. And technically I can do 4K from my setup that I have, with the exception of this computer screen right here. And the iOS screen. I don't have the hardware to scale this screen or an iOS screen up to 4K. That is something I don't have. That was something that would cost mucho dinero, which I don't have. it's a really cool thing to be able to do. It would be a very cool thing to do. But what I really, really, really would want to do is basically stream this Mac at Retina resolution. And I've been trying to do this for 2 years now, and no one, not even just stream, forget streaming, just record it. And other than using a local recording software to record it at Retina resolution, I cannot figure out a way to get that out to an external recorder, because you're basically outputting 4K UHD, double HD, and the other end just sees it as 4K, and that's what the computer syncs to, and that's it. And I can't get the Retina thing going. If anybody knows how to do that, tell me. I would love to know how to do that, but that has not happened yet. Okay, your question is now pasted in. Let's get this into place here. It's going to be a little bit fuzzier than the others because of the, no, I'm not on a Retina screen for the screenshot, but c'est la vie. Okay, let's drop that at the end of that, and that is now ready to go. Okay, I think that's it. Let's see, any other comments before we get started here? Having a beer, Jim, seriously, that's just not nice. One of these days, I keep threatening to do this show drunk one day. I think it'd be really fun. But at 9:30 in the morning, that would also be a really bad idea. I have to do like an evening show sometime. I need to stream in 4K 60. Thanks, Charbax. No, really, thanks. Do you have the bandwidth for it? Ska, sorry, is saying, if you could only have one lens for the GH5, what would it be, considering that the Micro Four Thirds lens are pretty expensive? Compared to what, man? Not compared to full frame lenses, they're not. If I was going to go with one, it probably would be this Leica 12-60. I'm really digging this lens. I would still rather have a pair, a 12-35 and a 35-100. If you're going to do one lens, this lens is super versatile. And this has become my new kind of take everywhere, leave on here all the time lens. You might remember ages ago, when I first got this, I said, oh, it's got to be heavier than the 12-35, and I put them on a scale. That was hysterical because I totally dropped my scale on the way. Anyway, that was a fun show. This barely weighs more. It is physically larger, but it barely weighs more than the 12-35. So the weight thing was not really much of a justification. So that would be the single one. Josh is saying, is there an official reason why the GH5 in VFR mode and shutter degrees will show the exposure off or the output? No, there's some, I've seen reports of it. I haven't even tested it yet. There's some weird exposure thing happening, but no, I do not have an answer for you about that. Faked Cube, PhotoJoseph's photo moment, late night. Yeah, we can do that. Okay. Ryan Green says, there's FCC regulations that prohibits being intoxicated, but maybe it doesn't apply to the internet. Man, no rules apply to the internet. Thank God for that. All right, let's get this thing started here. Get this out of the way. We are set. We got the camera. We got the things. We got the what's-its. I think we're good. Let's get that out of the way. It's not in the shot. That's just ugly. Let's start recording. That's always a good idea, especially since I really need this one for afterwards. So remember, for those watching live, there will be a false ending, and we'll come back and finish the show. All right, let's only straight up whiskey aloud. I'm with you. That is a very good plan. And Sean wants to help with the drunk show. Thanks, Sean. Now you chime in. Okay. All right, let's get this thing rolling. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, the first live daily photo show on the YouTubes every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. That's it. Come live. It's fun to watch live. So hey, today's show is the Q&A show, and it's a little bit different because I'm going to do a multi-part show. If you're watching this not live, this is going to be broken into multiple pieces. We're going to go through the first easy questions and then break out the bigger ones at the end. So at the end of this video, you'll see a 4 square pop up, boom, 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 with 4 additional questions, and you can jump to those if you are so inclined. I've even got like super high tech over here. I got this set up so that I can switch over to the question screen. And Serge's question is first, and it's huge, but that's okay. It's not really this big. I'm not going to try and answer all of this, but there is a reason that this monstrous thing is up here. There's no point in even doing that. You can't see it. Serge sent me a bunch of recommendations, suggestions, questions about, could we do this with the GH5? Could you pass this on to Panasonic? So I wanted to first address that. He even says in here, can we, I think he says in here somewhere, can we use you as a venue to get information requests to Panasonic? Something like that. Anyway, yes and no. So here's the thing. You are obviously more than welcome to post any feature requests, any desires, and you should. Post your feature requests, desires, passions, etc. in the comments. By all means, yes, please do that. I would prefer, and this doesn't just go to feature request things, this goes to pretty much everything. I'm starting to get a lot of email from my audience, emails or direct messages on Twitter or on Facebook and so on. And I have now a canned response that I just hit, thank God for a text expander, hit that and hit reply. you got to post this as a comment on one of the videos. It doesn't matter which video. You go back to one of the earliest videos, post a comment in there, and that's fine. The problem is I'm getting too many of these, and I can't answer them. And if I do answer them, if I spend the time to answer these questions privately, the only person that benefits is you who have sent the question, not the rest of the community. And by posting it as a question on the forums, on the comments, it's far more likely that someone is going to see that answer. So please refrain from sending private emails with questions. It's getting to be too much. You're just going to get a canned response that says, stick it as a comment. So that's the first part. Now, with that said, he's already sent this to me and I've already got this information. But Serge is asking for, besides the 400 megabit all intra mode, please introduce a 400 megabit IPB mode. And I said, I have no idea why that may or may not be happening or possible or anything like that, but I will pass that along. So as far as feature requests, here's what will happen. If you send me something that you think is going to be a good idea, I might just completely ignore it. I got to be honest. I might look at it and give you a reason why that's never going to happen. Or I might look at it and say, hey, I think this is a really good idea, I'll pass it along. Just because it comes to me doesn't mean it's going to get passed along. I may do it, I may not do it, you may never hear about it. Obviously, just because something gets passed along to Panasonic doesn't mean that they're going to pay attention to it, right? There's gatekeepers along the way that filter these things out until they get into the point where they could possibly become a feature. So please don't just email me all your feature requests, because that's not going to help. But post them in the comments. If you post something in a comment and other people are talking about it, that's cool. That's totally cool. But again, no guarantee that it's going to get passed along. The second thing he asked about, and this is a feature request that I can guarantee is not going to happen, but he asked about separate channel levels control for the microphone, because Serge has a microphone, apparently, a receiver, wireless receiver that takes in 2 microphones, which is cool. I've actually just been looking into these myself. So you get 2 wireless lavs and a single receiver. And then what Serge's setup is doing is it's sending mic 1 over to the left channel and mic 2 over to the right channel, so that when you're recording, without even having to have on the XLR1, you're getting 2 mics into 2 separate channels on the camera, which I think is really cool. That's a really cool way to work. He's asking for individual level controls in the left and right channel within the camera. And I can guarantee that's not going to happen. It's way, way too niche for that sort of thing to happen. Plus, that's got to be the job of the microphone receiver, to individually balance the levels of the 2 microphones. So it's up to either on the transmitter end, the microphone, or the receiver end to balance those out, get them equal, and then send them in. That's just got to be the way it is. So I'm sure about that. And the last one he asked about was allow assigning custom functions to the record button. So that'd be the record button on the top and the play button on the back. And again, that's one that I can tell you is not going to happen. And here's why. Even if I was Panasonic, I wouldn't do this either. You've got a series of programmable buttons on here, FN1, FN2, 3, 5, 6, whatever. Each of them says on it, this button's up here says FN1 right here. If we go to, let's see, do I have this all set up? I do. Let's get this into view here. So if I go to this camera, you can see here, you gotta see FN1, right? That says FN1 on it. These ones on the back say, right, let's level that guy out so you're not getting seasick out there. There you can see, where is it? There's FN2, there's FN3, that one says FN5, a little glare on it, but it says FN5. Those are clearly function buttons that are designed to be reprogrammed. Some of them have a little label next to them, right here. Let's actually go back to this view. If I go back to this view here, you'll see the FN5 there says LVF. That's its default setting, LVF, the live viewfinder, and that toggles between the LCD and the viewfinder in here. The ones down here, the FN2, there we go, FN2 says Q menu, FN3 has the focusing grid on it. The difference there is that the command, the function, isn't printed on the button, it's printed underneath it, which from a UI standpoint tells you that that's a default setting, but you can change it. You wouldn't, UI-wise, the red record button has a red dot on it. The green play button has the green play button on it. Swapping those out, while I can get, sometimes you just don't ever use those buttons and you might want to reprogram them, would be a support nightmare. And this is one of the things I hear from Panasonic a lot regarding feature requests, is the decision, part of the decision to include or not include something, is the evaluation of the impact on tech support. People could potentially reprogram those buttons and then freak out because they forgot or they didn't realize what they're doing, and now they can't play their pictures. Now they can't record video. Bad idea. So that's 2-level answer to why that ain't going to happen. But step one, or question one, the 400 megabit all intra versus the all IPB, wonderful. I will pass that along for certain. So thank you for that. Let's see here. Anything come up while I was chatting away there? Hello to Singapore back. Ben Fox asking, any more collabs coming up with any YouTubers? I'll do something with you, Ben. Let's get together. I know you're like bouncing all over the world, but I love your stuff. You're cool. So guys, Ben Fox, find him. He's commenting here. He's got great content. Check him out. Grant Parker, hi from Japan. Hello, Grant Parker from Japan. New fan of PhotoJoseph. Why, thank you, sir. And Max. Max is super cool too. Great to learn from each of you guys. Well, I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much. Sharbex is asking, is autofocus on the 42.5 millimeter slower than the 12 to 60 Leica? Interesting question. So I haven't put the two side by side. I had always, basically I'd been on the kind of the party line that the 42.5 millimeter f1.2 Nocticron is a slower focusing lens because it's got a much farther rack to go. And now I understand it's not a mechanical focus, it's still drive-by-wire. But in my mind, it was always a slower focusing lens. It's just designed to be, not to be used for action. It's designed for things like portraits. You want that really finite control. That said, when I did the tests with Max, when we were side by side, I put that 42.5 mil lens on for the beauty test because we wanted to get the maximum bokeh possible. And that was the perfect focal length for the setup that he had, get the maximum bokeh, et cetera, et cetera. And you even see Max used that lens on some of his gimbal shots. The one of me specifically, where I'm shooting him and you see him walking around with me. So on that gimbal one, once he got it successful, it did a very nice job of keeping it in focus. It's not flawless. I don't want to hear any more grief about this. I know it's not flawless, but it was very good. For the in-studio test with the beauty thing, I was really surprised at how quickly it focused when the girl picked up the makeup, put it back down, and went back and forth. That lens specifically, as opposed to the other lenses. It was basically as fast, maybe a little bit slower than the 12 to 35 that he had on there, but it was pretty much right on par, which honestly really surprised me. So I thought that lens was going to be slower just because of the design of the lens. Now I haven't compared it side by side with the 12 to 60. We were not using that one in that test because it's not as fast. We wanted the faster aperture, get the shallower depth of field. But I would, in general, I would say this 12 to 60 is going to be faster focusing, but I was surprised at how quick the 42.5 Nocticron was. I hope that answers that question. All right, let's go to the next question on the list here. Oh, Starbucks is also saying, hopefully the 42512 will get a dual IS2 firmware update. No, it's too old for that. None of the older lenses are going to get it, even though you might recall Panasonic originally said they would. Not that one. They said the 12 to 35 and 35 to 100 would, but then they had to back out on that because they said the hardware just, it's not up to date enough. It requires different hardware in there, so not going to happen, I am afraid. Okay, let's go to question 2 here. This is from Double Edge Ministries. When I shot at 180, and I'm assuming this means 180 FPS, my shots look very grainy. It was a night shot, but my 4K taken at the same night was perfect. Would you know why? I think, now there's not a whole lot of information here, but I think that what's happening, I think the reason he's doing this is he's saying 180, so I'm assuming 180 FPS. He references 4K, so if it's 180 FPS, that's at 1080p versus the 4K. You have to remember that if you're shooting 4K 60, and you're shooting, or 4K 30, let's go 4K 30, even make the math a little easier, and you're shooting basically automatic, and it sounds kind of like he is if he's not sure why the settings were changing, then it's probably an automatic. At 30 frames per second, you have a 30th of a second possible of amount of light that can come in for each frame. That would be your maximum exposure, right? 30th of a second. It can't be any more than that because then the frames would overlap, right? So maximum 30th. The camera's going to default to half of that, so it'd be a 60th of a second shutter speed. That would be your default. When you go to 180 frames per second though, now 1/80th is suddenly the maximum exposure that you could have, right? 1/80th, and the camera should be going to double that for the default, so it would be going to 2/60th, 3/60th. 3/60th. So that's a huge difference in exposure, right? That's a much faster exposure, which in same light situation means you either have to let in more light through the aperture, which he didn't talk about changing, so the only other variable that can change is the ISO, which makes perfect sense here. That means the camera cranked up the ISO to get that higher shutter speed required to shoot at 180 frames per second. When you're shooting really slow-mo, 180 frames per second, you need a lot of light. You just do. Otherwise, it's going to go really grainy because the camera's going to have to crank the ISO to compensate for the much lower shutter speed or shutter angle. So, well, lower shutter speed. Shutter angle can stay the same, but translates to shutter speed. So that's the reason for that. You always need more light to shoot that really high frame per second shutter speed, frame rate. BBB. Hope you got that. Hope that made sense. Okay. Next up is, right screen. Chris Anderson asks, this question is not related to this video. Just wondering your opinion on what the best wireless microphone for the XLR adapter for the GH5 would be. Looking for something I can clip onto the cold shoe. Appreciate everything you do. Why, thank you. I appreciate you as well, Chris. So I have not done side-by-sides on wireless lavs. I will tell you that there are a couple of full-on industry standards. This is the way to go. And one of those is what I'm using right now, which, let's see, I can't, wait, can that, yeah, it barely fits on the screen, the Sennheiser pack. Sennheisers are middle of the road price. They're about $700 for a pack that's a receiver and a transmitter. So that certainly isn't cheap, and you can get cheaper, but you can also spend a lot more. You can spend a couple grand for a wireless pack. Those are what I would just say your standard, this is what I'm going to recommend. They're reliable, they're used throughout the industry, everybody uses these things. The only time that you're not going to find these on a Hollywood set is if they're bumping up a level, and I can't remember the names of the next ones up there, like metal and blue, and they're super high-tech digital ones. But these things are fantastic, bulletproof, they just work. So Sennheiser's the way to go. Now, I know that some of the Sonys are getting very good recommendation, very good reviews, and they're just a little bit cheaper. It's not a whole lot cheaper, just a little bit. If you're doing dual pack, if you want to have a single receiver and dual wireless lavs, there are more and more of those coming onto market. I am thinking about doing a whole kind of roundup review on those because I'm quite interested in them myself, and that's always a good excuse for me to do a review on it because I can call B&H and say, hey, ship out this, this, and this, and I can do a review and keep the one that I want. Like that, so I benefit, you benefit. So I might do that, but I will tell you that I have looked at really cheap wireless receivers before. We're talking like under $200 Bluetooth, terrible experiences. Dropouts, pops and clicks, really limited range. Wireless lav is not something that you want to cheap out on. If you want to have good quality sound and reliable, which is just as important if not more, you don't want to cheap out. So I would recommend that. Now the Sennheiser pack, I can't show it to you on the other end because it's actually plugged into my mixer now because I'm using the wireless at your guys' request. You liked it better than the boom, so I've now gone to the lav. It comes with a, so you can't really see much here. This isn't showing you a whole lot, but you get with it two of these. So this is, yeah, there we go. So this end here is what plugs into the receiver pack, and then this end would plug into your camera, but you get another one of these that has on this end, instead of the 1/8 inch plug, you get an XLR adapter. And that XLR adapter could plug into the XLR1 for the GH5, or in my case right now, is plugged into my mixing board. So that's going to be my recommendation. And that is a recommendation based off of industry standards, my experience with this lav, and minimal experience with cheaper ones and going, no thanks, and just knowing that these things are everywhere. They're rock solid, they get used all the time. So that's going to be my recommendation to you. All right, let's see what else has been flying by here on the comments. Let me scroll back up a little bit. Ooh, lots of stuff flying by today. All right, Sheila says, I was wondering about the SD cards for the GH5, V60 or V90, and how large a card can the camera read? Ooh, I don't know that I don't think there's a max size for the card. I think the camera is latest standards, latest specs. So the not UHF, what does it even say on this one? Is it UHD, UHF, UH something, 2? Those are the newest ones, and those have the second row of, I don't even have one, but they have the second row of contacts on the bottom. Those are your latest and greatest high-speed cards. I don't think there's anything made that this camera doesn't support from that realm because, again, it's all latest spec. That's the sort of thing that happens after a camera's been out for a number of years and there's a whole new type of card and only the newest cameras can support it. But current specs, to my knowledge, there's nothing latest spec that you can buy that won't work in here. With that said, those whatever 2 cards with the double row, those are faster read and write times, and that comes into play in a couple of places. Right now, even with these standard cards, the UH1 cards that I have in here, you can shoot 4K 60, no problem. You can shoot 1080p, 180 FPS, no problem. It's nothing that this camera can do cannot be written to those cards fast enough to continue writing to them. Once we get the 400 megabit update, though, then those cards will no longer be fast enough. That is my understanding. Obviously, I haven't tested the X, I don't have it, but that's my understanding. So at that point, you will want the faster cards. The other advantage of the faster cards is if you're shooting stills, if you're shooting high frame per second and you're shooting RAW or shooting RAW plus JPEG, the slower your card, the longer it's going to take to clear the buffer. Now, this camera does have a 100-shot buffer for your RAW shots, so probably not going to run into a buffer problem. But if you're shooting a bunch and you get to the end of your card, you fill your card, and you need to pop out that card and replace it with a new one, no, okay, granted, we do have 2 card slots, but let's just say both cards are full. You need to clear them out. If you got 100 images in the buffer and you have a slow card, you're going to be waiting a few minutes before that finishes writing to the card, and you can swap them out. So another really good reason, if you're in high-speed, fast-paced stills environment, then you want those really fast cards too. So I hope that helps. I know it's kind of a half answer to what you're asking, but I hope that helps to guide you along the way. Oxharp says, going to buy the GH5 as a videographer looking to do concert photography, stills, okay, for the first time. Oh, okay, cool. What 2 lenses to buy, please? 12 to 35 to 35-100 version 2, or something else, I presume is the end of that question. Interesting. I haven't done concert stuff since 2009 when I was on tour with Seal. I even have to show those pictures one day. That was fun. I was shooting Canon back then, Canon full frame. I had the 12 to 35 2.8, and I had the, not 12 to 35, sorry, 24 to 70 2.8, and then 70 to 200 f4, and they weren't fast enough. For the really low light stuff, I ended up shooting with primes mostly. So that would be, back then I had the 50 f1.2, I had the 85 1.2. Those fast primes really made a big difference. So if I was going out to shoot a concert today, I would bring my fast primes. Zooms are convenient, but I bring fast primes and preferably 2 bodies so you don't have to keep swapping lenses. So you're going to want a long lens and some wide, so your 35 1.7 Leica lens. The 24, what is the 24 f1.8, I think? I don't own that lens, so I don't remember the specs, but that's the 24 equivalent, so it's a 12 1.8 something. It's a Leica lens. It's a beautiful lens. I got to get that one. It's super nice. So I'd have that. You'd want that 50 1.4, the 85 1.2. If you 80, what is it? I'm talking 35 millimeter equivalent, right? So 42.5 millimeter 1.2. The Nocticron, I would want to bring that. Yeah, I'd go for the fastest glass you could, because you've got these crazy dynamic low light, high light situations, and you want to be able to shoot as low ISO as you can. To really get that best quality. So that's gonna be my suggestion for you. But if all you can get is the 12 to 35, 3400, you make do with what you got. It's still gonna be good. High ISO performance in 2009 was light years behind what it is today, so it's probably less relevant. But still, you're gonna be at a distance from your subject. You wanna have as shallow depth of field as possible. It looks good. Vander says, come to Australia next year to help with my feature film. Plane ticket and hotels on me. Dude, Vander, if you're serious about that, let's talk. Sharback says, doesn't it defeat the advantage of XLR to use a Sennheiser G3 pack, which are mini jack? Probably, but remember, one of the advantages of using that would be you have a second mic. So if you've got 2 of these packs, you could have 2 inputs. So we're not talking about necessarily the 96 kilohertz quality change, but we are talking about sending in the audio to 2 separate channels on the camera. Another thing you could do, and I was thinking I might do this for NAB, but it sounds like too much crap to carry around. Put the XLR1 on here, put a boom mic on top of that, fed into the XLR1, and then put a lav on me. So I have 2 separate channels, ambient and lav. It sounds like too much like hard work. I'm probably not going to do it, but you could. So there would be the advantage, even if you're not getting the quality. Bernardo da Silva is saying hello. Well, hello back to you. And Ian says, props to you. Why, thank you. It takes a thick skin to do it. Yeah, I'm still developing my my internet skin. We're working on it. Okay, I think that was the last one of these. Oh no, there was one more, right? The new one that came in. So one more quick question on here, and then we're going to do our false ending. So this next question that come up is from Tom Otta, sorry. An early morning from Australia. Hello, Tom in Australia. Just curious what the shoot without lens feature is supposed to be used for on interchangeable units. So in the GH5, you'll find it on the GH4, you'll find it on every Lumix camera. You'll find an option in there that says shoot without lens. Yes or no, or on or off, or something like that. You think, why the hell would you want to take a picture without a lens on? The reason is because there are a lot of lenses that do not, older or manual lenses, third-party lenses, that do not have the electrical contacts, right? You look at these things and they're like all, you know, there's all kinds of electronic contacts in there that communicate between the body and the lens. You'll find camera lenses that do not have those contacts on there. So what that means is the camera has no idea that a lens is actually on there. And so if the camera is set, which is by default, to not take pictures if there's not a lens on there, because you think, you know, why would you don't want to accidentally push the button, take a bunch of pictures while you're changing lenses, then it won't know the lens is there and it won't take any pictures. So you have to say, explicitly allow this camera to take pictures when there's no lens on there. But what it really means is when you have a lens on there that is all manual. So for example, it's on there. So I've got lenses like that 25mm f.95 Zhongyi lens, which I have very good news. Remember the whole incident with the macro ring and it stuck and it wouldn't come off? Ryan fixed it. I finally gave up on trying to get it off, and I left it on his desk. I said, ship it off to the guys who did the ring adapter. They were going to try and get it off for me. And before he put it in a box, he was fiddling around with it, and he got it off. So thanks, Ryan. That was super cool. So I got my lens back, which I'm super happy about. But anyway, that's why. So when I use that lens, you put it on. What happens is when you first put it on, it'll tell you, I guess the camera kind of knows there's something there, because it comes up and it says, leave the camera at 25mm focal length, and you can change it, and that is specifically for the in-body stabilization. So the body knows you have a 25mm lens on here, or a 50mm, or whatever you put on there, and it adjusts the stabilization accordingly. But you still have to turn on that shoot without lens feature, or else it ain't gonna shoot. Okay, that is that. All right. That's going to be it. So, for anybody not watching live, thanks. Don't forget to subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, all that good stuff. Right in just a moment here, you're going to get a little screen's going to come up, and you're going to have a link to 4 different questions, and those are going to be the 4 next questions, which are going to be set up as separate videos. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.